Hello and welcome. My name is Bill Moore. I'm the CEO of Atmosoft. Today we're going to take some interview questions from Natasha. Natasha Moore is our lead UI UX and marketing director. Welcome, Natasha. How are you doing today?
Good. How about you?
I am surviving. And
Yeah.
work days are always fun. I love getting in there, getting stuff solved, and getting problems taken care of. All right. We're going to try to find the right time length for these. So I think that today we'll probably field a couple questions from Natasha, see how things go, but try to make it a little shorter than half an hour. All right, Tasha, why don't you take it away?
Okay. Um, okay. So the first question that I have is what motivated Atmosoft to focus on software development and documentation services for the automotive dealerships?
So I personally got into automotive and working with in the automotive space around 8 years ago. Began working for a company that was selling extended warranties. And just to be clear, not the ones that give you the annoying phone calls that call you about warranty is about to expire. These are sold at the dealership, integrated in. Uh, hey, Tom, how are you doing? Hey, Brandon, good to see you. Um, Started about 8 years ago. Did a lot of work, particularly for what we call a third-party provider for additional services for your vehicle. And so that was kind of my introduction into the automotive space. Consistently worked in this space, probably this is not the full 8 years. Took a break for about a year, but it's pretty much been doing it for 7 years. The sorry guys.
You're good. Little kids.
Yeah. In my experience in the automotive space, I've had a chance to kind of see how a lot of the technical solutions and a lot of the different architectures between the different pieces at play in selling and purchasing vehicles and extended warranties. So it's a space I'm interested in. I really like this space, and I think there's some room for improvements, specifically around just integrations and slightly better architectures. Yesterday, I talked a little bit about some of the challenges in the space, and I think with the way where technology is right now, we can kind of address on some of those pain points. I know the automotive industry as a whole, as far as I've seen, is a little bit hesitant to tackle newer technologies. And so I'd like to kind of introduce newer technologies and new ways to do things to the space as a whole.
Yeah, especially as like technologies and the cars that we use are evolving as well.
Yeah. The technologies in cars are getting pretty awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So, how does Atmosoft handle legacy system migration? Could you share some insights to your approach and any challenges you've overcome in the past?
Yeah, sure. So legacy systems are something I'm fairly passionate about, and I will kind of break away from the pack a little bit. I think if your software is doing what you intended, it's secure, and the software is operating in a way that you need it to operate in. I'm not a big proponent of upgrading. I think sometimes we tend to get legacy systems, and then we stop doing what I like to what's more often called kind of the maintenance phase. So
Mhm.
software has a life cycle. So you start with your project, you get your project to release, and then after you've released a version, maybe you're adding new features. Eventually, the system stops getting into the point of being kind of properly maintained. So you go into a full maintenance phase where you're pretty much kind of maybe taking care of some bugs, but you're not really giving the system the amount of attention that it needs. And I think there's a lot of companies that are currently getting, I wouldn't say on the tail end of their legacy systems, but their legacy systems are taking longer to introduce new features. They're constantly dealing with different bugs. The code wasn't refactored, it wasn't evolved. It just kind of like, oh, the PDF portion of the system works just fine, so we're not going to touch that for 5 years. And
Mhm.
now you go in and you have a new requirement for PDF generation or whatever particular feature you're working on, and it's very hard to get in there and work. And that's a product of not maintaining and not going in and evaluating your system and then refactoring and evolving it. When we first write code, everything's kind of together, it's all working perfectly, but then we start stacking more and more code on top of it, just more and more and more and more code, and then everything starts to get intertwined, and you have system entropy, and technology evolves, and maybe you move to a new version of IAS or a new version of Windows or a new version of SQL Server, and you're just kind of compounding all of these problems that might have been present in the core part of the system when it was first developed, and you're not going in and you're not maintaining it.
Yeah.
Mostly what I'm talking about here is the biggest challenge is the whole refactoring phase. Anytime I go in and touch any code, I'm refactoring everything around it. Anything, cleaning up methods, cleaning up variable names, making it more readable, breaking out confusing code. One of the things I see a lot of is you'll see a lot of code, like a function, right, that is like 4,000 lines long. That's ridiculous, and that function is doing way too many things. So I'll go in and I'll maybe extract, like, we're doing this particular piece, and it's going out and it's calculating some invoice property. I'll extract that out to a method. And so when you're working in a legacy system, you want to make sure that you're constantly refactoring the code around you. That'll help you maintain a healthier system. I'm not saying that entropy doesn't always step in, and there's most certainly a time where you may evaluate and say, hey, fixing this is not going to be cost effective. We're better off just kind of rolling our own thing, or moving to another platform and letting someone else kind of maintain and deal with those particular issues. Remember, a lot of companies got into the software development game because they needed custom software, and now they're kind of stuck in, well, we have a development team, we have a product, and we have everything else, and this is the way we've always done it, and this has been the last 20 years. And so their mindset kind of gets stuck in that, and that's what we at Atmosoft are trying to change opinions about how that needs to work. If your core competency is selling extended warranties to vehicles, then maybe you should focus on selling extended warranties to vehicles and leave the software to the software experts.
Yeah.
On legacy systems in general, I'm not always saying that you have to upgrade, but there definitely needs to be some time and money put into maintenance and making sure that your system stays healthy. We worked on a legacy system that's been around since it's ASP.NET Web Form. It's been around for a long time, but it's doing what the company needs. And the company's currently in the process of trying to migrate to a platform that's going to handle that for them and kind of extract themselves out of that side of their business being primarily driven by software, which is a great idea, right? The company doesn't want to be in development, and that's fine. And so they're moving in that direction. And I think that's a great idea. But I think with legacy systems, I don't think we give them enough attention. We kind of set them in the corner, and they do what they do. And then the other problem you have is the people who built the original legacy system eventually leave, right? Like the other people will come in and, oh, I developed this really cool extended warranty system, and I'm maintaining it, and then the maintenance phase is not the most glamorous phase of development at all.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people want to do it, so it becomes, for lack of a better word, more like a job, and it feels more like work, and you're not doing new things, and I'm not getting to do WebSockets, and I'm not getting to do Blazor, and I'm not getting to do these things. These things are, I think most developers really like new technology. It's one of the reasons why I got into it. I love the latest bits of everything. I love reading new source code and figuring out new ways to solve problems, and it's really fun. And I think a lot of that thinking, though, can be applied to legacy systems as a whole. I'm kind of passionate about legacy systems. I think we tend to throw away working software a little too quickly when maybe it just needs a little bit of love and a little bit of cleanup, and we can get some. It's like a used car that you really like, right?
Yeah.
250,000 miles on, but it's still running. Let's go.
Yeah.
And so if it's making money for the business and it's doing its job and it's semi easy to maintain, and you're not getting bogged down into, okay, we just released this new feature and now we have 47 new bugs. That's a sign of what I like to call, it's probably a common term, but I call it systemic entropy, right? Like our system is starting to fail. It's just all that bolting everything on and making it work quick. So in the beginning, if you don't think about your architecture, then you wind up in that spot because you also don't think about it all the way through, and then eventually the system just gets harder and harder to maintain. I think that's when a lot of people kind of think like, oh, we just need to start over.
Yeah.
I will admit, I've only out of I think like 5 times I've done it's called greenfield development, where we take an existing product and we try to, we try to kind of redo it. I've been through 2 that were actually successful. Most of them, most companies seem to run out of money before they get their new version released. And one of the things that a lot of companies don't think about is I go on about this forever. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Companies don't think about is as I migrate, you can't take away features,
Yeah.
right? So let's just say I have something in the web form application that's doing some function, and it's used by a lot of people, and I get over to Blazor, and it's not exactly the easiest thing in the world to do. So a company may make the call like, hey, we don't need the PDF print feature, or, whatever. Going back to our existing example, and then it kind of boils down to they take that feature out, and then their customers get upset.
Yeah,
Right.
you have to think about the end user when you're making the changes and upgrades, and how it's a huge thing in UX UI about like how you have to adapt it so that the end user is still able to use it and feel comfortable and not feel like the carpet was just pulled out from under them and now they have this whole new thing they have to learn.
Right. And then the other thing, like what you were saying, especially on the UI side, right? So I move over to, so I go from a web forms application, which has a lot of they're called postbacks, right? So I click a button on a web form, it sends a bunch of information to the server does some stuff, and then it re-renders the page. And when you go over to something like Blazor, that postback is not, it's gone, it's not there
Mhm.
anymore. So all of a sudden the experience, it's better from a technical side, but maybe not for someone that's been using that software for like 5 to 10 years, and they're all like, what's going on? Like
Yeah.
basically it's very, I'll use the word discombobulating. Like it's
Yeah.
just confusing. You're like, oh, okay. And so I think if I like the idea of taking a legacy system, and then the first step is kind of to modularize it, right? So if we have, again, I used this example yesterday too, if we have PDFs and if we're generating PDFs, maybe I can extract the PDF generation outside of the actual website itself and start upgrading the components around the app, right?
Mhm.
Until the app is basically just the core functionality with a bunch of individual modules. And then if I want to take it a step further, I can take those individual modules and host them up as services. And so you don't have to greenfield everything. You don't have to start from scratch. You can start breaking the system apart and then taking those pieces, and if you want to, you don't have to go to the microservices route. I'm hearing arguments on both sides, and I kind of agree with both. I think it's
Yeah.
situation dependent, right? And so if I have components or pieces of the system that's going to be under constant heavy load, then maybe I do want to extract those out of the app, and I want them to be something that gets processed, and then long running tasks and that kind of thing. And so the website and everything stays responsive. So I might pull that out and make that a microservice where everything else is just kind of more modular.
Yeah.
So like I said before, I love legacy systems. I think they're great, and I don't think we give enough credence to the work that's been done before us, and the value there. There's also hidden business rules in all of that code too,
Yeah.
right? Some of those, oh, when they get this flag for some random reason, they get a discount of 20%. Getting a bill and it's 20% over because they didn't have the magic flag set in
Yeah.
the database, or no one could figure out why the allow discounts every time for every scenario flag was actually in the database and what it meant. You lose context, and that could be severely damaging to your business. So my idea on the legacy system is kind of a staged update with kind of a stop point. I don't think greenfield is the way to go, but I think everything could be done just a little bit better, and I think things could be eased out a little bit.
Okay. And then just to clarify for anyone who might not know, in the audience, can you define what a legacy system is?
Oh yeah, sure. So a legacy system Okay, so my personal definition. Sorry, there's a bunch of definitions around.
Yeah.
My personal definition is basically anytime you have code that is running that is being used by your target end users, whether that be internal or external to the business. That in my opinion would be considered a legacy system, even if you're at version one. I've released it in production. It's actively being used. It's serving some business purpose. It's serving some customer purpose, and I would consider that code legacy at that point. So as soon as you're in production,
Yeah.
you're working on a legacy system, even if you're adding new things, and you should treat it as a legacy system and give it a lot of love and a lot of care.
Yeah, I also think it's really important because I think a lot of the times, at least newer developers are being taught on these new technologies. And so having someone like you in Atmosoft who has been there since the beginning, pretty much, right? Like 25 plus years of experience and knows like all the older languages that people aren't going to be taught nowadays in school
Yep.
is very vital. And I think that's very helpful because I feel like a lot of the time when people get pushed out of their legacy system, it's because the developer is not comfortable with that language as they are the newer languages that they're being taught.
That's a good point. One that I hadn't really considered. That is an interesting point. And I think developers definitely do drive newer technology adoption. I didn't think about the kind of the ramifications of working with older code. Some of the systems we work with are in VB.net,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
right now no one is doing
Yeah.
so I started out at VB6. Remember the VB6 was the first version that had both the 16 and a 32-bit version of the code, and it was on Windows 3.1, and it was let's go with interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Luckily, we've evolved. I mean, if any of the newer developers have ever had to do any work with COM or COM Plus or DLL Hell, they get appreciate kind of a lot better where we're at now.
Yeah, I think also you having that knowledge helps us in our documentation abilities as well because you're able to understand it. Whereas, like, I know Brandon, one of our other lead developers, he is newer, so he's not as familiar with VB as you are. So there's like times when we're working with older code that he has a harder time and needs your assistance because he didn't work with it like when you
Right,
did.
right, right. Yeah, it's not aware of kind of the tricks and the limitations around the especially the way that web forms works with
Yeah.
its whole page life cycle. There's a lot of weird stuff going on, and what a lot of people I think might have forgotten is would you have a server side event that you're handling, someone clicks a button or whatever, that page is getting re-rendered. It is not the same page that you were working with before. It looks the same if the developer did their job right and they had all your text boxes, but it's basically a new page, and so that can trip people up, especially people that are used to more of the Ajax style jQuery kind of query. I just need this one record, so go out and get the record, and then I'm just going to display it in the UI. That pattern works in web forms for
Yeah.
sure. Like just go straight HTML and JavaScript. But if you're using the server side stuff, it has to take a lot of behind the scenes things into consideration. I think a lot of that I wouldn't say gets hidden. I think we've got better technical implementations at the top behind the newer technologies today.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right, are we ready for the next question?
Yeah.
Cool. What specific features or aspects of your software solutions are designed to meet the needs of the automotive dealer groups?
Okay, so one of the areas where I feel like there can be a little bit better integration is between what's called the dealer management system. That's the system that the dealers use to, well, they manage inventory. They have all their product in there. That's what the finance people use to kind of get you approved for your loan and get financing for the vehicle. It's where you add on all the add-on packages that you could have from many third-party providers. That would be, extended warranty on like appearance or, fabric or, clear plate or the kind of the not sticker, but the clear plastic coating that goes on the front of your car
Yeah.
to kind of protect it from getting scratched and stuff like that. That all happens in there, and those systems connect up to a we call them providers, and those providers are basically just giant. They seem to be. I don't know the internal workings, so let's be fair on from the outside perspective. What it looks like is they're basically a giant XSLT document. So for those of you who don't know, XSLT is how you take an XML document that looks like this and turn it into an XML document that looks like that,
Okay.
right? So it's just complex logic of the DMS is expecting XML to look this way to work, and then the provider is expecting the XML this way, and they're kind of the translation layer in between. And
Okay.
I'll be honest with you, they charge money for each contract that flows through their system, and I'm not exactly 100% sure, other than added complications, why those need to be there. Like I'll be perfectly honest again, I'm looking at it from the outside as a person who's integrated with those systems and not integrated, done much integration. I have done some, but not much integration on the DMS side. So there may be other features or reasons why, technical reasons why they go that route. But it seems to be that realistically, the DMS or the dealer management system should just be able to hook up to directly to the API. And I mean, then you reduce the complexity. One of the challenges that we had, working with several of our customers, was we would want to release a new product or a new combination of whatever type of warranty or something like that, and then that would then we would have to coordinate with the provider to make sure that they could handle it, so those values would appear on the dealer management system. And I think as an industry, at least on the tech side, we've kind of evolved beyond that, right? If you tell me your DMS has these requirements and requires these fields, then I should just be able to, when you make a service call to me, I should just be able to generate the document in the format that you need. There's really not a reason that I was able to find in my research on why we have to go through these middle layers. Like
Yeah.
I'm about simplification, that in legacy systems too. Like really just want to keep it as simple as possible and meet all of the requirements that we need for a particular system. And when you have added levels of complexity that not only add extra time, because you have to coordinate with somebody else who may or may not have resources available to do whatever work you need them to do in order to get this new product launch. Whereas the DMS could be, and even if there's 100 DMSs, they're going to be mostly the same. I mean, I wouldn't imagine there'd be like huge drastic differences. So you could kind of handle that on your end, depending on who you're talking to, and you don't really need the complexity of one of those providers. So I would like to see easier integration as a whole. So and integrations where we're going directly to the menu. I think that would be better. It would reduce the complexity, and maybe the providers could switch and service, be a better service in somewhere else. There's really not any logical reason I can see to have that middle layer. I'm not trying to talk people out of jobs or
Yeah.
rapidly change the industry. I understand there's other non-technical issues aligned here, but it doesn't seem to make a ton of sense. And so yeah, so that doesn't make a ton of sense. And then just overall, like, okay, I know I talk about legacy systems, I do love them, but at
Yeah.
some point there's better ways to do things, and I do not think SOAP and XML they're old, and there are better ways to do that. That would be REST and JSON. I'm a big fan of JSON, exchanging data in JSON documents. I worked with XML a ton. I like XML; it's good, but I mean, realistically, there's a better option that takes up less bits on the wire, and it's kind of the structure of this. I don't know. Seems to make more logical sense to me than say an XML document. And XML got way complicated way fast. If you ever looked at stuff like XQuery or XSLT, which is the transforms. I mean, that's pretty much a whole nother programming language you need to know, right? And then
Yeah.
with the REST and the JSON platform kind of that we've moved to, you kind of get that it seems more readable and it's less complicated, which is nice. So, and SOAP itself, which is a protocol, has what does it stand for? Can't remember. standard access open protocol, something like that, or something open protocol. But anyway, it's basically a definition of basically secure XML to call something called a web service, which is what we had before we were doing REST. And so again, those technologies have evolved. And I would even argue from a security standpoint that the REST implementation with JSON is kind of a kind of more secure, right? Because we kind of took the with SOAP, I'm doing the authentication inside of the document,
Okay.
and so I'm sending authentication information to the server. And so that's going to be, it's called a secure header. So I'm sending in HTML, I'm sending this block of code or this block of XML. It's basically kind of authenticating me to. Well, the pattern we've moved to now is my website itself doesn't actually do any authentication. Like people might argue with me, but this is kind of the way that I see it. Is the authentic, so I get a request, the request comes into the server, and then I send a response, right? Well,
Okay.
the server has a pipeline with a bunch of modules, and before my code does anything, all these modules are authenticating and transforming and security checks, and they're doing all this stuff. So by the time it gets to my code's just doing what my code's doing, and I don't have to worry about all that other stuff because it was already done in the request pipeline. And so with XML you don't have that, right? So everything's kind of coded in, and maybe you don't implement the security on your SOAP correctly, and so you're leaking data or you're doing something bad. I like the modularization of the work that we have now, and I like the fact that I can depend on people who are just focused on authentication. Like that's their
Yeah.
job. Every day they come to work and they do authentication, authorization. That's it. I would consider myself kind of a broad developer, right? Like I understand the concept, I know how it works, I know how to wire it in, but could I go out and write my own OAuth? No, probably not. But someone else already did that, and that
Yeah.
works fantastic, and it's open source, and people are collaborating together, and people who are super passionate about authentication and authorization are working together. All that stuff gets done before it even comes to my code, and then my code just really doesn't have to worry about it. And so I think that pattern lends itself more to more of being more secure than kind of roll your own. Oh, I got an authentication header, let's grab the username out there and let's go the password and let's check it against the database. I would rather the server and people who are smarter than me in that particular space are handling that problem better than I would on a kind of roll your own kind of way.
Yeah, I think a lot of things have changed since back in the day. Like there's like I feel like I'm not sure, but I feel like there's a lot more warranties, there's a lot more things you can get protected. There's a lot more information when you go in to buy a car, like whether it's electric, whether it has like a Tesla, which is a completely different thing, whether it's a luxury car. Like there's so many other different things than back in the day when all that might have been sufficient. And then
Sure.
I feel also because so many people have gotten developmental teams into their companies, because at the time that's what you needed is you needed to create your own stuff because everything was still so new. Is
Yeah.
that now instead of creating stuff, you don't need to be creating everything. There's someone else out there who took way more time than you could ever put into it to create something that will do the same thing for you. And you just need to have someone who knows how to find those things and who knows how to get that connected to your stuff so that you don't have to pay so much for your development, but you can still get something amazing as an end result.
And then the end of the solution, like you said, is going to be significantly better than if you try to roll your own. I know a lot of developers want to they want to do the authentication, but honestly, it's a mistake. The problem, I wouldn't say the authentication problem has been solved, but I mean it's been solved good enough to where if you're kind of rolling your own username, password, validation, tokens, and you're not at least hooking into some of the providers like Google or Microsoft, or I mean, their authentication is going to be authentication, right?
Yeah,
And they've been doing it for 20 plus years, and they're all on top of security, and they have teams 100% dedicated to it.
yeah,
I would be super hesitant to roll my own on any of those, and you get to take advantage of that with
yeah.
when you're moving off.
Well, yeah, especially because like someone like Google, like I cannot imagine ever having the money like Google has to invest in someone to study all of that. Like
Yeah.
a lot of companies just don't have those funds to put into that.
No. And then it could take like uh, I had a friend who just did basically a multi-factor authentication piece using Twilio, and that was that Twilio is charging the right price, like it's a reasonable amount for each request that it authenticates, and now the application they're working on has multi-factor authentication, and it did trust me. One government contract I was on, we tried to do something similar, and yeah, it was not easy. We
Yeah.
did not succeed in getting MFA. I think we ended up going with some third party service from the Earth. It would be a third party service from the government to go ahead and roll that in, because it was just rolling your own on that. Like you said, it's expensive.
Yeah, well, like it's the same thing like as why the development like whole sphere has changed, like even on a smaller scale when it comes to people making websites. Like it doesn't make sense for you to go hire a developer to make a whole website for you unless you need something very specific, because if you just need a general website, you can use like Squarespace or Wix or WordPress or anything like that and still get something that's good enough for way cheaper than if you paid for someone to make it from scratch.
Yeah, I always thought in our industry specifically, the 80-20 rule is kind of a good good one to follow. What that basically means is if I can get to 80%, I'm probably in a good enough state, and probably for that last 20%, you're going to spend the same amount of effort it took you to get to 80. And so you have to ask yourself the question: do I really need that 20%? What I see us as an industry, specifically Atmosoft and other companies in a similar space, moving to in the future is it's going to be more of a kind of an integration of services. Like I think that's an area where a lot of systems are weak, where we have these siloed systems. They have the accounting system. I have the website. I have our Salesforce, and not all of these systems talk well or communicate well. And so
Mhm.
I think we'll move away from kind of doing that full on custom development, and it will be more towards how do I get, for lack of a better word, Sage, which is an accounting system. How do I get Sage to talk to Salesforce, right? I'm sure
Yeah.
there's already an adapter for it, but something like that. And I think we'll be spending more of our time in space, or our time in this space, just kind of getting these systems to talk together and getting companies more of a unified view of their data at an enterprise level.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's just so many different applications that every company or business is using that it's just like so much different information everywhere.
Yeah, and a lot of times, a lot of that will be replicated information, which can kind of be a problem, right? I
Yeah.
have to put this over here, and I also have to input this into the accounting system, and then you're paying these people to do double work, and maybe you want to consider some automation agent. There's a ton of different UiPath, Blue Prism. They write this whole automation suites, and you can just click on this field on the website, read this value from an Excel sheet, and put it over here, and you can kind of get some baseline integrations there. Then you work with a company like ours to get kind of a deeper level of integration and stuff. Kind of I don't like the idea of data being entered in twice. I've seen a
Yeah.
lot of places where it works, but it kind of works. Like, oh, they typed in the company name in all caps over here, and that doesn't
Yeah.
have the company name over here. So we can't tie those two records together because this one's capped and this one's not. And it's like wow, okay. First
Adding
of all,
hours of work onto
yeah,
someone
yeah,
when it's not even needed. Like,
yeah. So there's always a problem. So one of the things I'm always thinking about is how can we unify all the data across the enterprise. Plus, maybe someone who's not in the accounting team would make a different decision if they could, in a real time dashboard, see, oh wow, our sales calls, or our customer support calls, or whatever, they're at 5,
yeah.
and we should be getting more calls in like that. Maybe there's a problem with the phone system or something like that. But maybe they don't get that view because the data is siloed, independent to departments inside of the organization.
Yeah, like sometimes you just need some application or something that's not completely custom to do everything that all of your other applications are doing, but just to collect that data and to use UX UI to be able to show you that data so you can make quicker and better decisions without having to scroll through just this long Excel sheet.
Yeah, or checking like 5 different places
Yep.
to get all the bits of information that you need, and
Yep.
and those can be critical KPIs,
Yeah.
and so I think moving forward the dashboarding kind of like I feel like that's kind of what you're thinking, especially with your example. I think the dashboarding, and then pulling data from multiple systems and presenting it in an actionable way is going to be key to moving forward because we have so much data. There's so
Yeah.
much out there.
Yeah, it's not a problem of getting it. It's a problem of being able to get it all in one place. Like I know for me, just on my personal business and hosting my own website and stuff, I have like multiple places where I'm getting analytics through my socials and through my website and all of that. And it takes so much time just to check those.
Yeah.
And I'm paying to be able to have those analytics, but there's just no easy way to just like look at it real quick.
Yep. 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 Agreed.
Uh, but we are pushing on to 40 minutes, which is a bit
Oh, yeah,
past your 10, so we might wanna wrap it up.
yeah, let's wrap this one up, and maybe if you have some more questions, we could shoot forward and do some more. I actually think I enjoyed the format better than me monologuing for
Yeah. It helps to have someone to bounce off, especially if you're using, like, technical jargon. I can be like, "Well, let's hold on. Let's explain that."
I agree. Okay, Tasha, thank you for coming today. Thank you everybody for joining, and we will see you tomorrow. We are kind of testing different time slots. Right now we're doing 3 o'clock. We were doing noon. So I think tomorrow we'll try for 3 again and see how that works out. And then I enjoyed talking to you. Thank you everyone for attending or viewing if you're looking at this later. Have a great day, and we will see you all tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.